Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. If you're a supply chain pro, a food distributor, or an exec on the hunt for your next seriously lucrative import opportunity, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating, kind of complex, but incredibly profitable world of importing premium Pakistani Basmati rice into the US. We're going to take what looks like a super intimidating regulatory maze and turn it into a crystal clear, totally actionable roadmap for your business. All right, let's jump right in. So I want to kick things off by just throwing a massive number up on the screen for you. 5 million. According to the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, Pakistan exported over 5 million metric tons of rice globally in the 2024 to 2025 cycle. And guess what? Basmati contributed a huge chunk of that premium export revenue. So we aren't just talking about some tiny niche commodity here. We're looking at a massive, globally recognized agricultural powerhouse. But, seeing a number like that brings up a really important question for us today. Why is the United States, specifically, so incredibly hungry for this grain? Well, the demand within U.S. borders is literally surging right now. The consumer market for South Asian and Middle Eastern foods is just exploding. And that's driving some serious demand across ethnic grocery stores, supermarkets, halal markets, wholesale clubs, and even massive restaurant chains. The U.S. market wants that authentic aroma, it wants that crazy grain elongation, and it absolutely needs cooking consistency. And to get all of that in one package, they're looking straight to Pakistan's irrigated Punjab plains. So here's our quick roadmap for today. We're going to start with market demand, decode those premium rice grades, and walk through the processing journey. After that, we'll navigate the FDA import regulations, outline the essential certifications you need, and wrap up by overcoming some common import challenges. Let's get to it. Section 1, the demand for Pakistani Basmati and how we can capitalize on that quality. Okay, so why exactly do U.S. buyers choose this origin? It really comes down to perfectly balancing the sensory experience with hard business metrics. The rice has this amazing, authentic traditional aroma and exceptional grain elongation after cooking. For restaurants, that consistent performance during bulk cooking is absolutely make or break. But when you pair those sensory qualities with highly competitive international wholesale pricing, a super reliable year-round supply thanks to the Punjab Canal irrigation system, and the ability for U.S. distributors to request flexible, customized private label packaging, you've got a total home run on your hands. Moving on to Section 2, decoding premium rice grades. This is all about matching the grain to the market. There are 3 main premium export grades you really need to know, and each follows some pretty strict metrics. Take a look at 1121 Basmati. It boasts an incredible raw grain length of 8.20 to 8.40 millimeters, with a seriously low broken ratio of just 1 to 5%. That's your heavy-hitting restaurant and catering grade. Next up, you have Super Kernel. It's a bit shorter, coming in at 7.00 to 7.40 millimeters, but man, it carries an intense aroma that makes it absolute king in halal markets and ethnic retail. And finally, 1509 Basmati. This one gives you a long grain, but has a shorter production cycle, making it the perfect go-to for budget-sensitive wholesale and mid-range private label brands. The real takeaway here is that you've got to choose between these profiles based entirely on your end user. If you're supplying high-volume restaurants or caterers, 1121 Basmati is your absolute star. Get this, after boiling, these grains can literally elongate to over 20 millimeters, and more importantly, they stay beautifully separate during long buffet holding periods without getting mushy or losing texture. On the flip side, if you're targeting retail grocery shelves where people are cooking at home, you want Super Kernel. That stuff is aged for 12 to 24 months just to lock in that intense, traditional fragrance and soft texture that home cooks are looking for. All right, Section 3, processing for the U.S. market. Let's trace the journey from paddy to port. Getting this rice ready for the U.S. requires a super rigorous, highly controlled, multi-stage supply chain. Think of it as a mechanical journey inside the processing plants. First off, they clean the harvested paddy and immediately dry it down to strict export moisture levels. Then, the heavy machinery takes over to dehusk and polish the surface. Next, the grains are precisely sorted by length, and any broken kernels get separated right out of the batch. They even use color sorters to remove discolored grains and inspect for any foreign material before it's all securely packaged up. So we're not just talking about basic farming here. This is high-tech, precision food manufacturing designed specifically to meet rigid U.S. standards. And running right alongside all that mechanical processing are the essential laboratory tests. Export mills serving the U.S. have to focus heavily on contamination prevention.
Passing these specific lab tests over in Pakistan, things like verifying precise moisture, screening for heavy metals, testing pesticide residue limits, and checking for insect contamination, is absolutely vital. No joke, if you skip this step, you are risking a totally disastrous and incredibly expensive FDA rejection when your shipping containers finally hit the American border. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, Navigating FDA Import Regulations. Time to master compliance. If you want to master U.S. compliance, you absolutely must understand FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act. Honestly, this is arguably the most important concept we're covering today. FSMA was a massive game changer. It shifted the FDA's entire enforcement model from reacting to food contamination after the fact to requiring documented preventive safety controls throughout the entire supply chain. You can't just cross your fingers and hope a shipment passes inspection anymore. You and your exporter must actively prove you have systems in place to prevent hazards before the rice even gets loaded onto a boat. So, what do those preventative controls actually look like for a Pakistani mill? Well, the FDA and U.S. retail buyers demand to see hard documentation of continuous moisture testing, active metal detection systems, and proactive pest management. They also need full traceability and batch coding, so if something goes wrong, they know exactly where every single bag came from. On top of that, they require detailed logs of strict sanitation schedules and employee hygiene controls. Basically, your supplier has to be operating at a world-class standard, period. Now here is an absolute, non-negotiable rule you need to memorize. Prior notice. This is a mandatory electronic filing submitted to the FDA before your shipment even arrives at a U.S. port. It details exactly what's coming, the quantity, the packaging, the exporter, and the vessel information. I literally cannot stress this enough. FDA systems flag missing prior notice submissions immediately. If your ocean freight arrives and you haven't filed this electronically, your cargo is 100% guaranteed to be detained at the port terminal. Do not mess around with this one. Let's look at another supercritical compliance number, 14%. This is the absolute maximum moisture limit. Why does this matter so much? Because long international ocean transit periods are incredibly humid. If your rice is packed with moisture levels higher than 14%, you are literally creating a recipe for severe moisture instability inside that shipping container. We're talking spoilage, completely ruined cargo, and a massive hit to your investment. So proper controlled drying back in Pakistan is totally non-negotiable. Section 5, Essential Certifications and Documentation. Let's talk about the paperwork pipeline. Here's your checklist for mandatory export documentation. You obviously need your commercial invoice, packing list, and bill of lading. That's standard. But you also need a phytosanitary certificate, which is issued by Pakistani authorities to confirm the agricultural cargo is totally pest-free. And pay super close attention to the fumigation certificate. There's honestly nothing quite as painful as having a multi-million-dollar shipment detained over one missing piece of paper. Grain naturally attracts warehouse pests during long transits, so proper fumigation records prevent immediate customs detention. Wrap all that up with your certificate of origin, that FDA prior notice confirmation we talked about, and your lab analysis report, and you've got yourself a rock-solid entry packet. But if you really want to unlock that highly lucrative, high-value American supermarket shelf space, you've got to go a step beyond just the mandatory border docs. Large retail systems actively look for third-party certifications. If your supplier holds a BRCGS or HACCP certification, you're essentially proving to buyers that preventative hazard analysis is already in place. Add a halal certification for those ethnic markets, or go through the really rigorous farm-to-mill audits required for USDA organic recognition, and suddenly, the market value of your product absolutely skyrockets. All right, last section. Section 6, Overcoming Common Import Challenges. Time to bust some industry myths. This next point is a question that traps so many brand new food importers. They think they need to send a bag of their shiny new private label rice straight to Washington, D.C. for a stamp of approval. So let me ask you, does the FDA actually approve your specific rice brand before you can sell it? The answer to that is a resounding no. The FDA does not pre-approve individual retail brands. Instead, they perform risk-based inspections. Basically, they regulate the processing facility in Pakistan and the procedures used to ship the cargo. As the importer, you remain entirely legally responsible for ensuring the product's lawful entry and its safety. The FDA isn't just rubber stamping your cool new brand logo, they're auditing your safety processes.
And keep in mind, part of that lawful entry involves some very strict U.S. customs labeling requirements. I mean, you could have the most beautifully aged, aromatic, premium, super kernel basmati in the entire world. But if your retail packaging lacks these standards, it is going to get held up at the port. Your packaging absolutely must have the exact product identity, an accurate net weight, and crucially, the country of origin, which must explicitly state Pakistan. You also need an ingredient declaration, mandatory allergen statements, and your specific importer information right there on the bag. Wow, we have covered an immense amount of ground today, right? From the incredible 20 millimeter elongation of 1121 basmati, all the way to the rigid FSMA documentation you need to get it onto a US supermarket shelf. The demand for Pakistani basmati is absolutely massive right now, and the profits are definitely there for those who master the compliance side of things. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take back to your team. Are your sourcing processes truly audited? And is your supply chain actually ready for the US border? Thank you so much for watching this explainer. I really hope this gives you the edge you need for your next big import deal. Catch you next time.